Well, hello there. This is Debz Shakti, and I'm here with my friend Mark Valentine, who um, I like to call the innocent mystic. And he's called himself the innocent mystic. It's a beautiful term. Uh, Mark is a multidimensional channel, um, and he brings through so many high level beings in his channelings, but he has such an amazing background story to how he was able to come to this place where these huge grand energies come through and speak so much wisdom. And so, Mark, thank you for being here with me today, and I hope you will be able to answer some questions that I have after hearing some of your channelings and reading your story. First and foremost, can you just tell me a little bit about your background and how this all came about? It's such an immense story.
First of all, thank you, Debs, and I want to thank all of those in our realm and realms beyond our realm that are part of this experience, and they bring that into my whatever comes through my voice. And you mentioned the term multidimensional channel. My story goes way back into the 70s. I'm retired. I had a long career in the environmental engineering field. And I began to go through what I call a transition or a segue from the professional engineering career that served me well. We raised two children. My wife and I have been married for over 40 years. So we've had quite a life. And it really, my experience began later in life, right at that transition point prior to the end of my career, and it became very difficult to do two things at once, experience one side of my brain doing the engineering, science, analytical work, and then where this other part of my brain begins to experience something beyond even understanding, my own understanding. And I don't even understand it totally today, but I'm learning. And I still think I'm, in my own experience, probably closer to the beginning than I am further into the experience. In the 70s, I looked at seriously what I wanted to be when I grow up. And so in doing that, I began, first of all, I was having some depression and some health challenges, went to see my doctor over a period of time, and ultimately he said, I can't help you, but my wife can. She teaches meditation. So that began my meditation practice. So that was a little bit of a divine assist that I got. So in the 70s, I began to that. But what really triggered my transition, well, I would call it my transition to exploring the consciousness realm. In my search for a deeper meaning, I considered going into the ministry. And that was quite a different tact from where I was heading. But,
Interesting.
But but as part of that exploration, part of meditation, part of exploring consciousness, I came upon a psychic that I met, and she said, Mark, you need to come and see me. So that intrigued me, especially when I was going through this soul searching. So I went to see her. Her name was Leah. She changed my life.
Awesome.
She said, Mark, you're going to continue your engineering career, but at the same time, this flower is going to blossom or begin to blossom in you that will be your journey in consciousness and interdimensional exploration in the way she called, well, I see you communicating, channeling, experiencing higher dimensions, including those in other realms like ET realms, angelic realms, all of that she laid out. And what was interesting, she said, Mark, you don't want to pursue your engineering career. You're thinking about a change, but you will stay in it. And I did. And she said, there's a test you don't want to take, but you will take that test. And within a few months, you will relocate from Kansas City to the East Coast for your career. Well, all of that actually happened.
Wow. She's good.
Yeah. So she jump started what I call my career in consciousness and learning how to care about the earth, care about the people, but
Mm.
contribute not only in my one side of my mind, my analytical mind, but learn how to even make maybe could be considered a more important contribution in the spiritual consciousness realm. So I was really
Awesome.
grateful. So I in the '70s, late '70s, I relocated from Kansas City to the East Coast to pursue my career, and all of that continued on. And I would say for the next for the '80s and into the '90s, it was pretty much a family life, and I was pursuing that. Obviously, happily married, raising two children, two daughters, and then but yet something was gnawing at me on the inside, and I
Oh
had some
yeah.
insight into that from my experience with Leah. And my dream life was showing me some of the things that were happening below my consciousness, but rising into my consciousness. So anyway, I'm very much had a conventional life that began to have unconventional experiences. So
Oh yeah.
that created change. Not only we moved different places around the United States, East Coast, Southeast, West Coast, and now we live in Florida. So explored a lot of that, and that's all through my engineering career. But now in my retirement years, I was shown a way to bring what I call a more important gift into the world, and that's the gift of learning about exploration into consciousness beyond what we can think about, what we can learn, what we can apprehend in our limited conscious thinking. And so what happened? Well, so anyway, so that was kind of a transition, but I want to mention two dreams, and I don't know where it all goes from that, but even before I left Kansas City and I had the reading with Leah, I had a dream there that I was lost and I was at a city in Florida. And right now I live in a city in Florida. Now this
Yeah.
is 40 years later, but I live in,
Precog dream.
yeah. So and in that dream, I was lost. I couldn't find my way, a bit of a panic, much like the process that I was going through to go from the conventional life to the unconventional life.
Yeah, very
So,
symbolic.
so I was in a bit of a indecisive moment, but in the dream, it was at night, stars were bright. I looked up into the deep starry sky, and I heard this sentient voice speaking to me. In the dream, it said, "Follow Sirius if you want to get home." And so
Oh,
I heard that and repeated it. So I mean, it left a lasting imprint. I didn't know really what it meant, other than um, exploration into higher realms of consciousness. And I don't believe it in my own thinking. I don't really know, but in my own thinking, I don't believe that necessarily meaning I'm from a star system in Sirius, but symbolically. And maybe I am. Maybe we all are.
yeah.
I
But
believe,
look to that bright star, right? Which
yeah,
I think is fun. I just am looking, making a correlation here between you and your background. You have Orion's constellation right behind you. Where Sirius should be is right directly behind your heart,
right.
where
Yeah,
you're sitting.
yeah.
So neat.
Oh, and the other dream I will mention that had what I think a lasting impact. Now, this fast forward from the '70s into the early '90s. We were living in the Southeast at the time, and the dream I had then was more than a dream. I would call it kind of a mystical, transcendental experience. I found myself in right in the early morning hours before I woke up. I found myself lucidly dreaming, seeing myself floating through deep space. And
Wow.
so another venture into the stars, right?
Oh, yes.
I was floating past planets, past stars, and at the same time, I was feeling an energy in that experience that I'd never felt before. It was new, it was different, it was exciting, it was wondrous, and I was going with the flow. It was like being shown a whole another world that I never could have imagined. So, anyways, that was all not just seeing the dream, but experiencing the dream energetically at the same time. I was seeing this movie that was playing out in my mind. And then the dream shifted to the second part where I was in um, a new environment. It was electric. It was super plasmic. It was
Hmm.
completely filled with light. I was laying on a table, like some of the stories maybe we hear about people being on a table and having things
Right.
done to them. But I was not in any way afraid. I was not in any way in any danger of any kind, and nor was I in that situation against my will. I couldn't say what my will was then, but whatever was guiding me, taking me into that experience was let's just say a soul destiny. And it took me
Yeah.
to a
You were
place.
okay with it. You
I
were
was,
okay with it.
I was
That's
more
how
than,
mine have
I
always
was,
been.
I was excited. It's just like,
Awesome.
yeah. And then,
I can relate. Yeah.
but in that experience where I was in that room, what I call that plasmic electrically charged room, I was lying on a table. I was aware that there were beings all around
Hmm.
me,
Yes.
surrounding the table, and I was aware that they were doing something to me.
Hmm.
And yet, I wasn't afraid. Whatever they were doing, I felt they were benevolent, and they were changing me. And so, and I tried to speak to the beings in the dream, and when I spoke, I was thinking at this speed that I'm talking now, but when I was listening to my voice in that experience, my voice sounded slower than I was thinking. So
Yeah.
there was a time discrepancy between
Right.
what was in my thoughts and trying to speak into that experience. And I
Yeah. This maybe the other dimensional and the physical dimension. Because you're in two worlds at once.
so it I was wonder bound. I think that would be the best word. I was wonder bound. And I was curious because again, I was watching myself have the
Mhm.
experience as a witness, but yet I was the recipient of this event. So
Yeah.
it was amazing. And then the third part of the dream, I was out of that plasmic field and I was sitting at a restaurant, a TGI Fridays, outside having a lunch with a friend. And I looked at him and I said energetically, they changed me. They changed.
Oh.
I'm psychic. I'm psychic. So,
Yeah.
so I knew in the dream something had happened to me. So
Yes.
anyway, that was an important moment in my life. And then if I fast forward to the mid to late 2000, I began to experience what I call a radical change in my life and in my consciousness.
Mm.
It was both scary, wondrous. It was so many things, but um, I went through some difficult trauma. It began with a gradual elevation in my feelings, my energy, sleeplessness, and then I began to experience these levels of consciousness. I didn't know how to assimilate it. I didn't know how to explain it to anybody, and I was having a full time job. So yeah, I
Yeah.
was
Oh.
mind bending, mind changing event in my life, and I had to be father, a husband,
Oh. Yeah.
a provider, and all of that was happening at once. So in 2009, and I began to have all these, let's just call them psychic experiences. I was beginning to hear, um, see thoughts in my mind. By the way, the term that's used in my experience is seeing thoughts telepathically, not hearing a
Hmm.
voice in my head talking to me, but seeing the thoughts and the ideas streaming into my consciousness. So I was
Fascinating.
yeah. And I did some radical things that did not make sense, and I wouldn't call them particularly conscious raising, but my mind was all of a sudden found itself left one shore, hadn't arrived at the other shore, and it was in the middle of a turbulent sea, riding the waves the best I could. So
Would you describe that as almost maybe now in hindsight as seeing yourself maybe calibrating your tuning, like attuning to that higher vibrational state and integrating the two?
I would say definitely that's one way to say it, and the another way would say something not in your thinking mind, but in your consciousness.
Yes.
My thinking mind really didn't know how to describe it to not even myself. It was all experiential. Yeah. So there was a tuning and an integration in that period. But and I did some silly things and some things that, quite frankly, were kind of upsetting to my wife because all of a sudden her husband, her provider, was acting strange and different. Um, so I was spending time alone. I was having a lot of sleepless nights. I had a golden retriever named Zeppelin. Zeppelin and I would go out, venture out in long drives in the countryside. So anyway, there was some different and strange behavior, and it was upsetting to my wife. It really was. And it was, and I knew at the time that it was upsetting, and yet a part of me said, whatever's happening, you've got to find the meaning in it. You've got to explore it. And so
Absolutely.
I tried, I not only tried to, I had to. It's something that it was in me and I couldn't like squelch it. I couldn't try to put it in a box and put it away. It's something that I had to come to terms with. Anyway, so this went on for a few months in 2007.
If I could interject for just a second, Mark, what comes to mind is, and I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, but many people watching this will know who I'm talking about. This sounds very similar to the experiences that the great author and philosopher Whitley Strieber, who wrote Communion, who kind of blew open the relatability of ET contact experiences, alien abduction, if you will. He went through the same thing. You know, he's a well-noted author, very even-keeled guy, had a wife, had a son, had a vacation house, you know, highly regarded. And then all of a sudden he's having all of these experiences with no way to conceptualize them. And everyone thought he was going mad, including himself. And it, you know, if you know the story, it almost broke up his marriage and all this. And yet he was guided every step of the way. It was very tumultuous for a while, but he was guided every step of the way. And it turns out, you know, he was kind of opening a door, not just for himself, which is very important, but for the world, for the global consciousness to start looking at this subject and recognizing, oh, this is happening to more than just me. And it's very similar to what you're saying. You know, everybody thought he was cuckoo crazy for a while, including himself. You know, and how do you explain that to people?
When you're in the middle of it, you can't. You can only live it. You can hold on to the best you can and try to function not well in one world and not well in the other world, but do the best you can. And have some compassion for yourself and also have some compassion for the people you work with who see this strange behavior. Have some compassion for your wife and children who see their father and husband acting differently. So yeah, it was all happening at once. And in 2000, so that was in 2007. So I went through that. After hospitalization, the sleeplessness quelled down, the elevated feelings and emotions quelled down, and but yet, let's just call it the psychic experience, the telepathic experiences continued on, including automatic writing. And out of the first experience, a teacher came into consciousness and calling itself the soul creator. And I can't today tell you what that means, what that is, but beyond the realm of our level of understanding, beyond the level even of our soul's level of understanding, something beyond what we could not even conceive of. That's why I cannot explain it, but I can say he came into my life, into my mind as a teacher. And the message is, first of all, the message is we're more than we can ever imagine that we are.
Wow.
And the second message, when we live on this plane of life, he says this multiple times, we are believers. He says we come into the world with a certain mindset that can see the
Mm-hmm.
world, but does not truly know the world. So, and it talks about at the level of the mind, we are believers. It keeps you, the teacher keeps calling us the believers. We believe in love. We believe in the world. But what we don't know the world. We don't know the essence and the truth that's in love. And
Wow,
so,
yeah, profound.
oh, and by the way, I'm saying this, repeating what I've heard. Do I know this in my own life experience? No. I'm a very conventional person who had a very conventional life that something very unconventional happened to. So, whatever the
Wow.
thing is, it's embodied a mind within a mind. Think of a portal being placed into your mind that abstracts your mind, and it also then your mind transitioned into something we'll call multi multidimensional, plexing reality. So,
Wow, and that's an incredible way to describe it. You brought up the term abstract mind with me earlier, and it makes so much sense. I've had people interviewing me at times saying, "Are you sure you don't have like multiple personality disorder or something?" And like, as far as I know, I don't. It's just the way that the mind is able to reach out and make connections with other higher level experiences, the
yeah,
experiencers who are speaking through, right? And
yeah.
it's very exciting.
In 2008, in terms of automatic writing, the teacher, the sole creator, I spent months and months trying to, first of all, assimilate what happened to me in 2007.
Yeah, how
And,
do you even do it?
well, he began, I call him a he, she. The sole creator began to teach me through automatic writing what I thought was a book at the time. And he called the book Teaching Love, the Way of the Soul. And
Wow.
the whole message the soul creator brings to me is that there's creating a new paradigm for living, a new prototype for us to be the way we could be in the world, not only in our own conscious mind, but something which is our soul that created us, that placed us in the world, created our consciousness, created the situation and life environment we find ourselves, bringing that intelligence, that knowingness. And the soul creator says, in the level of souls, they know. They simply know. We'll call it reality. They know what it is. On our level, we don't see our souls, but we are something. We see something in our lives that I'll call um, reminiscent of the soul that sent us into the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah,
And
I
so,
call it the echoes.
yeah,
So,
we
yep,
see the reflection, the echo
exactly.
of the soul. Anyway, so but what the soul creator does, in my experience, he brings the soul consciousness, the soul knowing, not just on an echo level or reflection level, but on a fully aware, fully conscious level where your mind is functioning in the world, going about what you do in your daily life, but yet there's this other consciousness that you're acutely aware of every moment that's in your life and in your mind, and it chooses its time when it wants to teach me about, let's just say, who I am. Because ultimately, I asked the question, and they said this in the challenge. I asked the question to my soul in my own dark night of the soul, who am I? Tell me, who am I? Because I only
Yeah.
have this belief that I'm Mark and I do this and I do that. I have these certain attributes and I have these certain roles that I play in the world and I have a certain way of seeing myself. And they say that is believing how you believe yourself to be.
Ha ha ha. Yeah, there's a whole different experience between believing and
And
knowing, having
knowing.
the direct experience,
And
right?
so let's just say the knowing came into the believing. And it doesn't mean that I am a know it all. I'm not. I just have this knowing presence in my mind that wants to teach the world something about what they call the way of soul. And what I believe, essentially, I'm kind of like a prototype, a new way to see ourselves in the world, where we're aware of where we came from. We are aware of our origin
Ah,
story, but
yes.
and that story can teach us who we are.
Oh, I
And
love it so much.
yeah. So and then 2008 there was maybe 50 to 100 a lot of pages that came through introducing me to the idea of the way of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2009, I went through a similar experience as 2007, but it was ramped up by a factor of 10, much
Oh,
more,
wow.
much
Oh,
more. And so up until that point, I was doing really automatic writing, experiencing the thoughts. Um, and then in 2008, a lot of time put into the writing. But in 2009, it was late at night. We had a hot tub. It was a starry night in October in Florida. I was doing a hot tub. I was in a hot tub, and I was thinking about my work, my engineering project. And
mm-hmm.
yet, in the midst of that, here I was alone. It was night, starlit night, and I began to go into a coughing spell. And then I began to cough up words.
Oh, wow.
I went, and then the next thing I knew, I was voice channeling.
Wow.
And so that took me to a whole nother phase of it. So in 2009, all of that happened again. 2007 on steroids. And again, a lot of the trauma at work, a lot of trauma at home, because I was trying to live two lives and I couldn't reconcile the two. And what later occurred to me is the term the innocent mystic, feeling responsible for what happened to me and my family in some respects, that there was a lot of trauma around it, feeling responsible. And yet a whole series of dreams started. Well, anyway, to finish 2009, a lot of voice channeling, working with the voices. Again, my wife was not into that at all. So
Yeah.
again, there was a discrepancy. So that happened in 2009. More writing, but the other big event that happened to me in 2009, in 2010, again, the telepathic, the writing continued, the telepathic part continued. I worked a little bit on voices, but mainly it was trying to assimilate again what happened, how to make use of this. What is it for? What is the good to my life? What is the good to the world? Because again, I go back to, I want to make a difference in the world. I would like,
Sure.
whatever was invested in my experience, I would like to have some idea that it could be offered to help, to benefit others in some way. So anyway, in 2010 and the whole decade of the 2010s, automatic writing, and I spent many a session in counseling talking about what had happened,
Yeah.
talking about what was happening, and all of this time, the writing was there, the voices were there, but yet I wasn't sharing it. And now I got to the point now where it became a time to begin to share. By the way, I'm in my senior years, I will say, it's time. It's time for me to share it. So what I would like to do, unless Deb, you have any more questions, I'd like to offer the opportunity to share some of my experience.
Yeah, no, I was just, you and I are so simpatico. I was just getting ready to say, would you share with us some of maybe the information or the voice that comes through the Emily Mind or the Soul Creator? Or I know there are many others too, because you and I have visited before. But I would love to give people who are watching this a little taste, and maybe whatever comes through will be I believe will be absolutely relatable for each and every person in a different way. So how would you like to do that? Will they introduce themselves? Will they?
Well, they'll do what they do. The only thing I would ask of them, we'll just call them for now the voices, because they're all different.
Right.
I will ask of them to introduce themselves when a new voice begins. And I would ask them to do a simple bowing, so that the viewers will know that there's been a shift, because I always know, but it's happened so quickly sometimes, it's hard to distinguish what happened between that voice. And by the way, there's other voices that call themselves angelics, angelic mind, and they'll probably introduce themselves as well. So we have a little time left.
Let's go.
But the whole experience is called Teaching Love, the Way of Soul. So here we go. The way of soul is in the mind. The way of mind is in the work. And the way of the work is in teaching love. I call myself the soul creator. I created the mind. I created the soul. And I created the mind that listens together with Mark. I created that Mike, that Mark, that Ann, and I will speak in only one idea. I am the mind of Mark speaking to the soul creator, the mind of Mark, creating this experience here, bringing the ideas that are flowing into Mark's mind from the soul creator. I call my mind the mind of Mark. I am the mind listening together with Mark's mind. I call his mind the mind of life. And how do I do that? The mind created a way for Mark's soul, for Mark's mind, for Mark's life to experience what I will call the O mind. You just heard the mind of Mark asking the soul creator to explain the connection, the relationship between the O, between the soul and the mind of life. Let me explain. I call it the O. What is the O but a presence in the world? It is in you. O, O, O. A presence that says to the world, I am O. I bring all things into the world. And the O of the world is love. Love is in the world. O is in the world. I call it O. You might call it the love that I know that's in my mind. And I call it the O in your mind because O is a presence in every mind. O is a presence in the world, asking the world to say to this mind, soul creator, teach the mind of Mark the O belief. And the soul creator will ask you, Mark, to listen to the O belief. I speak now, the soul creator. I come into Mark's mind. I bring that idea of the O mind into his little mind. I call this the little mind of Mark. His mind, his mind knows not the O belief, but what is in his mind knows the O belief. For what is O believing itself to be in his mind but love? And what is love teaching the world but I am? What is I am but the presence of our Creator in our lives? I call it I am. For what is I am but the mind learning to believe that something is in the soul, something that's teaching the soul about the mind, and something that's teaching the soul about the mind, about the life, about the story that's in the life. You know your story. I say to you today, you know not your life. For what is your life is beyond knowing. What is your life is beyond any idea in the world. I will call that the creation idea. And the creation idea is in the work. And the works, the works, the work, the work is in the mind. I speak now. I speak now. I am the O mind. You have heard the soul mind. You have heard the Mark mind, the little mind. But you have not met the O mind, the O belief you have been introduced to. The O mind is in the mind of Mark. I will use the O mind idea. I will speak in this voice. The O is in the world. The O is bringing all things together so that each thing can come together. You believer, I call you listener a believer. I call Mark a believer. But what is it you believe in? The love that's in the world. And you believe in that, and you came to the world to offer your own understanding of that. You said to the world, I am here. I am in a life. I'm a mind being a life. And my life is teaching itself a story. So I come into the O and I bring the story into the world. And that story is, I know the thing. For Mark said to his soul, I know not who I am. I know not anything of what I am. So the mind came into Mark's mind and said, I bring the soul of Mark, but I also bring the creation of Mark. And I call the creation the work of the angelic man. The angelic man calling to the O belief. And the angelic man brings the O belief into the world. So the O is in your mind, and your mind, believer. The O is in your mind. And the angel bringing the O into your mind is love, is love, is love in the mind. The angel calls itself to Mark, Ambriel, my name, Ambriel. I bring the idea of O into the mind of Mark. I say to Mark, believe in O, teach the O who you are, and teach the O the mind, the soul, and the way of love. But teach the O belief in the world. Bring O, love, into the world. For the Creator came into the world and said, I am love. And the world heard this.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Nothing. The world heard nothing. And then the Creator said, I will bring the O into the world. And the O will bring your belief, no idea of who I am, into the world that the Creator created. We'll call that world creation. And the O brought your belief into creation. And when it did, you said to your mind, the Creator is in my mind. Mark's mind said that to his soul. The Creator is in your mind. And the Creator brought the idea of the world into the mind of Mark and placed that idea into the soul and brought the soul of Mark into the mind. And the mind said there is a story in the creation idea. And that story is worlds apart from your story. For the worlds apart are the worlds in the universe you call Omega. In the Omega world, I bring the creation idea. For what is creation but all things listening together and all things bringing the way of creation into the world? For what is the world but I am love? And creation says that to the world, I am love, and I bring love into your life. For your life says to the world, I am love, but love is teaching me the mind. But the mind does not know the soul. The mind believes it knows, but the mind knows not its soul. For the soul to come in your mind, the creation idea must say to the soul, go into the world, bring the world a new idea, the soul and the mind living in one belief, a life, the soul living a life, the mind believing a life, and they live this life together in this itty bitty mind. That mind said to the soul, teach me who I am. And the soul said to the creation mind, teach me who I am. And the creation mind said to the Creator, teach me who I am. So for all of this to come into being, the creation, the Creator, bringing all of that into the mind. The Creator of all there is. I believe I know the thing I am. I believe I know the thing you are. I come into this world and say to the world, come together, believe together, understand together. And together is every mind. Your mind, believer, your mind, your mind, your mind, your mind, listener, your mind, your mind. All minds coming together, believing in one idea, O, the believer mind, knowing the O mind, bringing the creator mind into the world. A bit of creation is in the world in this itty bitty mind. The creation idea is know thyself. And to know thyself, the soul must bring that idea into your life. Know thyself, believer. Know thyself. Know thyself. And the Creator said to the world, if I know who I am, I will bring the idea that I am in the world, teaching the world, I am the world. I am the creation of the world. And I am the Creator that created the creation of the world. Who am I? I call my name the Creator. I simply am the creator. I created you, believer. I created this man, Mark. I came into the way of his soul, and the way of his soul brought his mind into this work. And the mind of the work says the creator, and the creation idea is in the world. Listen to your idea now. I know not the creator that's seeing itself in the mind of Mark. I say to you, you know me. You know me because your mind is in the world. I'm in the world doing what I do, creating creation. But you're in the world seeing not creation. You see your belief that creation is not real. For creation to be real, your mind must say to itself, I am in my mind. I'm in every mind. For creation believes in every mind all together, listening together, finding together, learning together. If you're in every mind, you know creation. If you're in your own mind, then O is connecting you to the creation idea. O is bringing you together, all together, listening together, believing together, and learning together that Creator is in the world, bringing love into the mind. The Creator calls himself I. The Creator says, I bring O, and I bring it for you. I,
I,
O,
oh, you.
love.
Very good.
The Creator said to the world, I, O, you, love.
Love.
So the creator created the love idea to come into the world in this little itty bitty mind and saying this idea, the bigger idea, into the world. I know you. And guess what? I will teach you to know me better. And I will say to you, know me better in your own believer mind, but know me in your soul. For what is the idea that's in the world today? The soul believing in the mind seeing the soul, coming together as the soul mind, being the mind working in the world. The soul mind is another idea, a new paradigm, a new way to see the world, a new belief that's in the world. We can come together, learn together, believe together, find together the way we're created to be. We created this idea in the world, know thyself, but thyself came into the mind and brought the mind into a better understanding. Let us learn to see what created my life. I call that your soul. And I created a belief called the way of soul. And I created a teaching called teaching love, the way of soul. But in your mind, I say to the world, teaching love is in the world. Teach, 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 teach. You teach yourself nothing. Why? Because you believe that creation is not in your mind. For creation is real. What you believe the world to be, I say, is not real. For what I call real is creation knowing itself. Every mind listening together. Each mind, no, every mind. Your mind alone? No, all minds together. Come together and they created creation of the world. And the earth said to itself, I know the thing I am. I bring the earth into the way. For what is the creator but the mind seeing creation? For the creation mind is in the world saying, I know the thing I am. And the world said to the creation mind, I know the thing I am. And the creation mind said to the world, I know the thing I am. But it said it in a voice that could not sing. The Creator said this to the world, I bring the singing voice into the world. And I bring the singing voice into this little mind. And I say to Mark, sing, sing, sing. And his voice said, I can't sing. I'm just a mind, knowing a mind of life. If I'm a mind of life, like you, believer, if I'm a mind of life, how do I learn to sing? But in his mind, the believer mind said to the world, believe in me. Believe in me. I will create the be mind. Listening in the creator mind, seeing creation. Be mind, love. The Creator saw something in its own understanding. Be, be. Let yourself Be. And creation saw this in creator. Be. So creation, seeing creator. Creator, seeing creation. Learning to see one thing. As the mind sees the soul, as the soul sees the mind, the creator sees creation, and creation sees the creator. All things coming together, mind and soul, creation and creator. But bringing all of that together is something I will call be. Be is in your mind, believer. Be the belief that you are love. And be the belief that I owe you love because you owe love. For what is love in you but belief? And what is the belief in you but love upon the world? For love said to the world, I bring the mind of be. For be calls itself ever present. Be calls itself always in the world. Be calls itself the way the mind can learn. Be of the world, you say. I am in the world. I will let it be. If you let the world be, then I say this to you, let creation be in your mind. For what I bring to the world is creation, and I call my mind the be mind of love. The be mind of love is in your life. I bring the creator into the created, and I bring the created into the soul, and the soul into the mind, and the mind into the life, and the life into the story. Life on. I call this the be belief. 1, 2. But what does the be say to 1, 2? Come together. Believing in one, believing in one. The one idea, one way, one belief, one oh in your mind. Be in the world. But the be idea said to the world, I bring the angelic life into the minded life. I call your life a minded life. Your mind living a life in you. And I call that a minded life. So be says to you, be in the world, be a minded life, but I bring the angelic mind into your life. The angelic mind will say to you today, embryo is my mind, says Mark. Embryo has entered my mind. He says this to the world, I sing to you a story of love. The angelic mind sings a story of love. I sing to you a story of your life, says the angel. I sing to you a story of your life. And the angel brings the singing to the mind. And the angel says to the world, I bring a mind to you. I bring a mind to you. I bring a mind to you, to you, to you. The angels in your mind, bringing a mind to you, the angelic mind, knowing the world, knowing the thing in the world. For the angel knows the creator, and the angel sees creation. He brings the creator, the creation, into the mind of a human, calling itself a minded life. Human, say this to yourself. I am in the mind of be. Be of the world I see, said Mark. Be of the world I see, said Debz. Be of the world I see, said you, believer, you listener. Believe in the mind, believe in the soul, believe in the way of the mind of the soul, believe in all things together, and believe that the Omega creation is in the work. I bring the Omega into the world. I bring the Alpha into the Omega. The Alpha creation I bring to the Omega creation, calling itself you, Omega you. I call you Omega your name. Omega your name. Omega your name. But coming in to the Omega comes into the world the Alpha. The Alpha creation, creating all creations. I call all creations creationia, creationia, all creations coming together into one belief. The world, this world. What is worlds apart doing to the idea of creation? Not much, not much. Worlds together is creation. Things together is creation. You together is creation. Creation is the togetherness idea. Bringing that idea into this work, I bring the Alpha, I bring the Omega, and I call my mind the Alpha mind of Mark. I created his belief that a mind can know itself. I created his belief that a mind can teach the world itself. I call my name Andrew, the Alpha of Mark. I created his life in the way of a soul, but the soul does not know the Alpha belief. And the Alpha belief says this to the world: I, Andrew, bring Mark into the life he calls his own. And the Alpha mind sees the soul mind, and the soul mind brings the Alpha mind into the Omega life. All this has been said to speak of the work I will call teaching love. This is the introduction. These are the players in the work. This is the idea in the players in the work, and you're a player. I am a player too, says the Alpha mind of Mark, and I played this idea into Mark, the story world. But what is teaching love? The way of knowing the story of the world. I bring that story into the I, the am, the love in the world. I, Andrew, bring Mark into creation. I bring Alpha. Mark brings Omega, the Alpha of the Omega coming together. And we'll learn something later called the Tao. All of that that's been said is the Tao. Let us believe in the Alpha and the Omega, finding the Tao in the work. All that's been said is learning to believe in teaching love. Learning to see teaching love is in the world. And teaching love is in this itty bitty mind. There's a mind in the world, and that mind is the creation mind, speaking these words to you today: know thyself. But what is in the self but the mind? What is in the mind but the soul? But what is in the soul but the life? All coming together as the soul, mind, life. And this is the work, learning the soul, mind, life. I begin by saying to Mark, I believe in you, said Debz to Mark. I believe in Debz. I believe in Debz, and I will say this to Debz: I am the creation mind, believing in the work, and I bring Debz and Mark into the work and say to the work, Debz, bring your life into this work. Mark, bring your life into this work. And I call this work teaching love. And let that begin today. The teaching love life is in the world. Say hello to the creation mind. Thank you, world. Thank you, believer. Thank you, listener. All that's been said is in the mind, teaching the story of the world. Thank you.